Next on the list at 489 is Phil Spector and various artists, because he's, really just the producer on these. Back to Mono, which is a collection that spans from 1958 to 1969. This album, if I guess you can call it an album, it's more of a collection. What's the big word? An anthology. There you
Mm-hmm.
go. It's an anthology. It is long, at over, let me do the math, 2 hours and 25 minutes. There's no, I'm sorry, over three
Three.
hours and 25 minutes. This is a 3 hour long venture. You will not lose respect from us if you're following along and you don't make it through all 3.5 hours. Full disclosure, I certainly didn't. Um, I It's hard to find. I listened to some other stuff. There's a lot of songs on this list that I already knew and recognized from my personal history with classic radio. Well, not classic. You know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Kyle, what did you think?
Hey, it's Kyle. Just jumping in real quick to ask, do you approve this groove? Let us know in the comments. Give us a quick thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation.
Um, well, I think first of all, do we talk about Phil Spector here? Because he sucked, like as a person. I kind of had a
I
hard
mean,
time listening to this, just knowing the kind of person he was. But I think I
yeah,
think if we spent a lot of time talking about the personal lives of a lot of the people on this list, we're going to be spending a lot of time doing that. So
we wouldn't get very far.
no,
Yeah.
no, but I
But yeah, if in case you're living under a rock, Phil Spector killed someone.
mhm,
So I mean, there we go.
yeah, yeah,
That was in 2003, way after this. Now, that
right.
being said, who knows what happened before
Oh
2003?
yeah,
Um, who knows? Maybe a lot could have happened. And again, I'm just skimming the surface here. Some other people probably know a lot more than we do. But yeah, again, full disclosure: Phil Spector killed a guy. Still on the list. Great,
woman,
thanks, Phil.
yeah, killed a woman.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
killed a woman. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as the anthology itself goes, so I did suffer through the entire thing, and it wasn't easy to find. But I did, yeah, I went through all three discs, and again, just like with the Linda Ronstadt album, I relied heavily on the rubric again because of the lack of connection. Like I don't want to give something a bad score just because I personally don't connect with it. So that being said, there's a lot of really cool stuff on here. Getting beyond my own personal opinion about the music, like it's not something that I would choose to listen to again. It's something that, like, if I was hanging out and it came on the radio or something, I would be like, oh yeah, I know that song. That's a Phil Spector recorded song, that sort of thing. But what I thought was awesome about it was the way it highlighted his wall of sound recording technique, right? Like the first disc of this album starts early, or this anthology starts early in his career, and you can hear song by song kind of the progression of that sound of what became the wall of sound. Through that first disc, and it's by like 2/3 of the way through the disc you get a really good picture of what he was able to accomplish with his recording. That being said, I got it by the end of the first disc. I didn't really need two more discs of it to get it. Like, not to say that there wasn't good music on those other discs, but to me, Phil Spector's contribution in large part was that wall of sound, and that first disc really highlighted that wall of sound technique really well.
So you weren't even whelmed. You were just kind of underwhelmed.
I was down the middle again. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
so. Maybe just whelmed. You were
Whelmed. I was I
whelmed.
was I was sufficiently whelmed.
Sufficiently
Yeah.
whelmed. All right. Yeah. So all right. This anthology reminded me of the group the Crystals. Um, I mean, they were definitely on a heater in the 1962 or so. The song "He's a Rebel" stood out to me. I had not heard that song in so long, and it just brought me back. The melody in that is the vocal melody in that is so cool. It's like at one point there's like they just sing like an arpeggio up and down, and it's just really fun. I really like that one. There's a couple other ones that surprised me. I forgot about. this song "Never Too Young to Get Married." I was like, okay. Point of order. Sometimes you are too young to be married. But anyways, this was teenagers in the '60s. I get it. One of the songs that surprised me on this one that I didn't realize was a Phil Spector song is "River Deep Mountain High" by Ike and Tina Turner. Again, didn't know that was later. So this anthology, like we said, really spans like the very late '50s through the '60s. But I in my opinion, the quality of the stuff kind of trails off towards the end. And I would venture to guess 10 years of just cranking out this stuff. I mean, and this is 3.5 hours of the best of it. So there are X amount of hours of other recordings that didn't make it on this list. So, I mean, this is just insane. I mean, the volume of stuff. You know, they can't all be bangers. They just can't. So, no shade on that one. This anthology was released in 1991, prior to his run-in with the law.
Run-in, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and I would imagine that this was probably much more of a collector's item in, you know, like we would see some of those. You remember back in the 90s, every once in a while on cable, you would see those box set commercials and, you know, order those mix albums and stuff like that. This seems to me like it was put together for one of those sorts of things. It's certified gold in the U.S. at over 500,000 units sold. So like I said, this was an afterthought, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the real records being sold were the original records. Yeah. What did you rank this one?
I gave it a 3 again. Relying on that rubric, I didn't have a whole lot of connection, which I think one person who deserves a lot of credit for this more than Phil Spector is Jack Nietzsche, who is he arranged a lot of these songs and was the producer for a lot of these songs, and I had a lot of respect for him after listening through this. But as a whole, yeah, I there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. I didn't have a ton of connection to it, so I went with a 3 again.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, it's tough. There's so much of it. It's hard to consider the whole thing. I mean, the rankings probably are the least important thing that we're doing, but a 3. There were some songs that I would put way higher than that. There's some really good ones. One thing that I did notice that I thought was interesting, you know, we mentioned the timeline of his personal life. When Rolling Stone released their first ranking list in 2003, which I can only assume was before he was arrested. I have to assume that because this was the 64th ranked album of the 500 in 2003. So, How the Mighty Have Fallen. Deservedly so.
That is... it's a precipitous drop.
Yes, probably. I would venture to guess probably the biggest drop of all the albums that like were on the original list and then are still on the original list, because some of them dropped off completely. But that's a drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Anything else on Phil Spector and this great one? I mean, we talked about the Ronettes already before. They feature pretty prominently in this one, but I think we covered it.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for watching. We'd love to know what you think of this album, so let us know in the comments. Do you approve this groove? And as always, a quick thumbs up helps a lot. Subscribe so you can see all 500 albums, and we'll see you on the next record.